Welcome back to the Junk Room, everybody. It's me, the Junkman, here to talk junk once again. What are we going to talk about today? My other favorite besides Star Wars, and that's Indiana Jones. Now, before I get into that, if you want to help support this channel, go over to Patreon. Description's in the link below. Head over to StarWarsJunk.net or thatjunkman.com and buy a couple of t-shirts. You can get Indiana Jones t-shirts. Now, enough of that. Let's talk about Indiana Jones. And not just Indiana Jones. We're going to talk about this right here. The Crystal Skull. Do you realize it's been 10 years since the release of Crystal Skull? And if you're like me, and most Indiana Jones fans out there, you wasn't completely happy with it. It was an okay movie, but overall for an Indiana Jones movie, it's not that good. Now, I haven't sat down and watched it in a while, and I thought, well, it's been 10 years. The new of it has wore off. Maybe now I can watch it in a whole new way. A way I've never seen before. That I won't judge it so harshly now that it's been 10 years and I've kind of let everything settle in. So I did it. I sat back and I watched Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So has my opinion changed in these last 10 years? Do I like the Crystal Skull better than I did? Well, sit back and relax, because here's my 10th anniversary review of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Does the Crystal Skull get better with age? Sadly, I think not. Maybe even worse. Now, like a lot of fans of this movie, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. It's a good movie. It's a good, entertaining movie. But it's not a good Indiana Jones movie. The bar with the first three is set so high, I'm not even sure if Crystal Skull could have reached the bar, but it doesn't even get close. What's my main issues with the Crystal Skull? It doesn't feel like an Indiana Jones movie. You can say what you will about The Force Awakens. Some call it a remake or maybe a retooling of A New Hope. But most people, even those that didn't like the film, say it feels like Star Wars. So why doesn't Crystal Skull feel like an Indiana Jones movie? Harrison Ford is back, Lucas is back, and Steven Spielberg is back. All the elements are there. So what went wrong? First off, it changes up the formula. The first three movies set up the Indiana Jones formula. It set up what an Indiana Jones movie should be. Raiders opens with a small story unrelated to the rest of the movie. Sure, it does set up Indiana Jones and Belloc's hatred for each other. But the idol never comes back into play. In Temple of Doom, it opens with an unrelated story about the remains of Muhachi. Can't believe I said that right. Now, it does help to move the plot along. It gets the movie started, but it has nothing to do with the rest of the film. Muhachi never comes back into play. The Last Crusade jumps back with a story of young Indiana Jones. And that small adventure has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. Other than setting up the tension between Indiana Jones and his father, the rest of the opening has nothing to do with The Last Crusade. What about Crystal Skull? It ignores this setup that the other movies had, and being that this is right at the start of the movie, very quickly you're starting to feel something is off, even if you can't place it just yet. Sure, it does have a little adventure at the start, but unlike the others, this seems to have something more to do with the plot. There's an alien, and it seems to be like the same type of alien at the end of the film. This never feels like its own separate little adventure story, unlike the other three movies have set up. Second, the Crystal Skull asks the viewers way too many times to suspend our disbelief. In the first three movies, they have things that are supernatural or hard to believe. For Raiders, it's being dragged behind a truck or the melting faces of Nazis. Temple of Doom, we have a jumping out of a raft or pulling someone's heart out while they're still alive. All the movies ask you at some time to suspend disbelief. But Crystal Skull seems to ask you to suspend belief way too many times. Some really hate the nuke in the fridge when Indiana Jones gets in a refrigerator and is saved by atomic blast. As far-fetched as that is, I have no real issue with this. As I said, some of the movies in the past at times have asked you to suspend disbelief. Is it kind of dumb that Indy can survive in this refrigerator? Sure it is. But is it also kind of dumb that Indy can jump out of an airplane in a raft, slide down a snowy mountain and into a river? Yes, that's dumb also. But we give it a pass because it's Indiana Jones. But Crystal Skull goes too far. From using a snake as a rope, Mutt swinging around like Tarzan on CGI vines, big ants pulling a man into an ant bed. And to me, the single worst thing that pulled me out of the film, huge trucks that cut down trees. In the other movies, things were set up in the real world. Sure, maybe it couldn't happen, but everything was real world. Tanks, submarines, elephants, rope bridges, planes, everything was set in the real world. Here we have a whole new type of vehicle that never existed, and even if it did exist, it wouldn't have worked. It's easy to ask me to believe a man can fall from a raft or outrun darts in a cave. Cause hey, caves are real, rafts are real, but you can't, at least for an Indiana Jones movie, just make up vehicles. To me, when I saw them cutting down the CGI forest, that went too far. It took me out of the movie, and they had went too far, asking me too many times to suspend my disbelief. Seeing Mutt swing around on vines, sword fighting on the back of a Jeep, really didn't help much either. Besides, it just looks horrible. You can ask viewers to suspend their disbelief a few times, but too much and you're going too far with it. You can easily ruin a good movie. Number 3. Spielberg's heart just wasn't in it, and it showed. Spielberg has said that he felt Last Crusade was the perfect ending to Indiana Jones. They ride off into the sunset.
There was a reason that I invented the shot of Harrison riding a horse into the sunset, because I thought that brought the curtain down on the trilogy, and then we were all going to move on and mature into other aspects of filmmaking, and I never thought I would ever see Indiana Jones again.
But Harrison Ford really wanted to do Indiana Jones again, but Spielberg kept saying no. And then even when George Lucas started to want to do another Indiana Jones film, Spielberg again kept saying no.
And I was the holdout. I was the one that said, I'm done with this series. It was great. Let's walk away.
And George Lucas really kept pushing the theme of doing aliens. But Spielberg always felt he has done the alien things one too many times and wanted to move on from doing aliens. Spielberg said finally, to humor George Lucas, he agreed, thinking, they'll never get around to making this movie, and if they do, he probably wouldn't direct it, and some young director would.
I resisted, but I also never thought I'd be making Indiana Jones 4, so I guess I kind of humored George by going along with it, thinking, well, I'll never wind up directing this movie, though. I'll wind up producing it with George and somebody else. We'll get some young kid to come in and do this, you know.
It's clear that Steven Spielberg was never really on board to bring back Indiana Jones, and it seems like he was doing it mostly because Ford and Lucas wanted to do it. I do think Spielberg did his best at making the film, but it just doesn't have the same feel of love and passion that the other 3 films have. 4. A weak story. Now I do understand that this movie is aimed more as an homage to the 1950s B science fiction series of its time, as the other 3 were aimed more for the adventure series of the 1940s. I feel this was a good turn for the movie, and it made a lot of sense. But the problem is, there's no real meaningful story. In the past films, the thing Indiana Jones goes for might drive the movie, but the movie has a lot more to say than just Indiana Jones trying to find a treasure. Raiders was in a sense a lost love story between Indiana Jones and Marion. Temple of Doom was more about Indiana Jones freeing the kidnapped children and saving the village than it was him trying to find magic stones. And The Last Crusade is without a doubt more about the relationship between Indiana Jones and his father than searching for the Holy Grail. Now you can say the true meaningful story for Crystal Skull is Indiana Jones dealing with his relationship with his son. However, Indy doesn't even learn Mutt is his son until halfway into the movie. But once Indy finds this out, there's very little interaction between Mutt and Indy. It's all action from then on out. If it was written so Indy knew Mutt was his son from the start, and had Indiana Jones ending up being kinda like his father from The Last Crusade, where he focused more on his work than his family, this could have added depth to the story that was missing. It would have given a spin on The Last Crusade, with Indy becoming, at least to his son's eyes, how Indy saw his father. Sadly, something in real life that happens a lot, and it could have been something good for Indy to see and learn by the end of the film. Now, I don't want to bash this movie the whole time. It's not a bad film, and honestly, I really do enjoy the first half of the film. I love seeing old Indiana Jones, and they didn't shy away from the fact that he was a lot older. They addressed it and had fun with it. One of the best scenes to me is Indy and Charles talking about life, getting older. And as I get older, one of Indy's quotes from this scene really sticks with me.
Seem to have reached the age where life stops giving us things and starts taking them away.
Indy and Mud's interaction is great. They seem to really work well together, and there's a lot of things you might not notice the first time around that really plays well at bringing these two characters together.
Take it easy. What was your relationship to Oxley?
Dad died in the war. Ox kind of helped my mom raise me.
Saying somebody's gonna kill him?
The film for me starts to fall apart after the reveal of Marion. Sadly, I love Marion in Raiders. Marion, this time, has very little to do. It seems she's put into this film because they wanted to have Marion in the film. Sure, her and Indy have some nice little moments, but overall, there isn't really much for her to do other than just tag along with Indy and the rest. As for Mutt, I really don't hate him as some do. I feel Shia LaBeouf and Harrison Ford work well together. As for Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, he never once felt like he was phoning it in. However, unlike the other films in the series, Indy here is never really in much danger. In the other films, Indy always seems to get his ass kicked, and somehow right at the end, get lucky. We never really get that here. The closest we get is his fight with the big Russian, but he mostly holds his own ground with the big Russian. That is until the ants attack the Russian, but Indy himself is never in really any harm, not even from the ants. Sadly, after 10 years, this movie didn't grow on me. Again, I think it's an okay movie. It's a good movie, but it fails on so many levels as the Indiana Jones movie. Even my son, who's a huge Indiana Jones fan, grew up on all four of these films without the huge break in between. I would say he loves Indiana Jones more than Star Wars. He went almost a full year going everywhere dressed as Indiana Jones. How does he feel about the Crystal Skull? He will watch it, he will enjoy it, but he would tell you it's the worst Indiana Jones movie by far. So even someone that grew up with the newest Indiana Jones movie being an old Indiana Jones movie, he feels about the same as everyone else. That is a good movie, but it's not at all a good Indiana Jones movie. As you can see, I had a lot to say about this movie. Now, I hope you enjoyed that. If you hit thumbs up, maybe I don't really want to call these reviews because I'm not really reviewing the movie, just kind of talking about it. But I would like to do more talking about some other movies, maybe the rest of the Indiana Jones series, and I can explain to you why I think Temple of Doom is a lot better than The Last Crusade. Yes, you heard me right. I like the Temple of Doom a lot more than I like The Last Crusade. Don't get me wrong, I love The Last Crusade, but I also love Temple of Doom. Just love it more than The Last Crusade. Anyway, in the comments below, let me know what you think about the Crystal Skull. Now that it's been 10 years, maybe you can look at it a different way. Or maybe you just hate it too much where you can't even watch it at all. I want to thank you for watching. We'll be back Friday with not necessarily Star Wars, where we give you all the Star Wars news of the week, plus pop culture news, toy news, and more. And don't forget, on Mondays we do a random vintage Star Wars figure review. That's a lot of fun. So again, support this channel in the description below. Head over to StarWarsJunk.net to get some cool t-shirts. We'll be back very soon.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.